Good morning. The Morrow family of Newgate Street, 1943. Pull the other one. The Morrows couldn't make this up if they tried. It's set, of course, in war-torn London during 1943, and this continues to follow the Morrow family as they navigate the hardships of the Second World War. Maud and Richard, who run a hardware store on Newgate Street, continue to deal with personal scandals, the loss of neighbours, and the grim reality of whatever the war throws at them. The story explores the complex lives of those in their circle, including Maggie's troubled relationships and Arabella's search for love amidst the chaos. As historical events like the Battle of Stalingrad and the Dam Buster raids unfold in the background, the characters face legal troubles, poverty, and the shattering of social norms. Ultimately, the story captures the resilience and moral ambiguity of civilians trying to survive amongst a protracted global conflict. There's a lot more going on than just this. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are settling in for what feels like the long haul. We are opening up the files on the Morrow family of Newgate Street, and we are looking specifically at the year 1943.
And this is a big one. For those of you who've been tracking this saga, this is the 5th installment in the 8-part chronicle, so we're past the halfway point of the war.
We really are. And if you've been following along, you know that the previous years we've covered, 1940, 1941, they were just defined by this high adrenaline, blitz-centric terror. It was about immediate survival, fire watching, the bombs falling. But 1943, this is something completely different.
It is entirely different. If 1940 was about dodging bombs, 1943 is much more about dodging despair. The adrenaline, that initial rush, has completely worn off.
Right.
The blitz, at least that nightly pounding terror of it, is over for now. But the war has dragged on for 4 long years. And what we see in all the source material for this year is this massive shift from physical survival to psychological endurance.
And the sources describe it perfectly. They call it the grind of victory, which is such a potent phrase.
It really is. It's characterized by exhaustion. It's dull. It's tedious. And, frankly, it's deeply cynical. People are just tired.
Exactly. Everyone knows, or at least they hope, that the Allies are finally starting to win. Stalingrad has happened. The tide is turning in North Africa. The Dam Busters raid provides this huge morale boost. But the cost of it all is becoming just unbearable.
So this is a year of fatigue. It's a year of, as we'll see, shocking scandal. And it's a year of shifting morals. We aren't just looking at troop movements or grand strategy here. We are looking right into the heart of the Morrow family, Maud, Richard, Maggie, and their whole circle, as they navigate a London that is gray and tired and, fraying at the edges.
So I guess the mission for this deep dive is really to track those subtle but pretty devastating social shifts.
That's it. We see the erosion of what you might call pre-war morality. We see the breakdown of the justice system in a way that is truly, truly shocking. We see the acceleration of childhood. It's a year where the external war, the big picture war, is going okay. But the internal war, the war for the soul of this family and this community, is getting very, very messy.
Okay, so before we jump into what the sources call the dirty yellow mush of January snow, let's do a quick roster refresh, just to catch up on who's who in Newgate Street for anyone who might be new to the story.
Good idea. So at the center of it all, we have Maud Biggs, formerly Morrow. She's the matriarch. She's running the hardware shop on her own terms. She's tough. She's a rule breaker. And we will definitely get to her illegal pharmaceutical hobbies later. And she's fiercely protective of her own.
And then there's her husband, Richard Biggs. He's the stepfather figure. He's patriotic, works at the church, and he's really the weary peacemaker of the family. He's just trying to keep everyone from imploding.
Yeah, he's the steady hand. Then you have the younger generation, Maud's daughter, Maggie. She is complicated. She's got her toddler, Juliet, but her romantic life is, to put it mildly, a series of car crashes.
That's a very kind way of putting it.
And then we have Gail, the young shop assistant who's turning 17 this year. and she is just growing up way, way too fast in this environment.
And the supporting cast is just as vital to this story.
Oh, absolutely. You've got Agnieszka, the Polish refugee who works in the shop. She has this deeply traumatic past. She was formerly a prostitute and is now devoutly religious and, like Maud, fiercely protective of the family.
And the neighbors.
Yeah.
Oliver and Elizabeth Nettle running the Viaduct Tavern. There's Arabella Flowers, who is newly married and trying to achieve a new level of respectability. And the source of so much drama this year, the dentist, Dick Pepper.
The infamous Dick Pepper.
Yes. Okay, so let's unpack this. Section 1, the winter discontent. We open in January, and it is bleak. The atmosphere is one of general lawlessness, and it starts with a bang, or, well, a break-in.
It does. It's New Year's Day. Richard Biggs is woken up at 5 a.m. by this pounding on the front door. Now, you have to picture this. The context here is key. Richard is suffering from what the source material says he calls the mammoth of all hangovers.
And why is that?
He and Maud and the Nettles had been celebrating. They were up late listening to the wireless, celebrating the Russian victory at Stalingrad.
That tells us something right away about their coping mechanisms, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
In the earlier books, they were constantly drinking tea. Now.
Absolutely. The drinking has ticked up considerably. It's not celebratory drinking, really. They are medicating the stress of year 5 of the war. It's a way to numb the grind.
So he's got this mammoth hangover. It's 5 a.m. Who's at the door?
It's Constable Redcalf. He stumbles down, one eye closed, throbbing headache, to find this policeman at the door telling him there's been a break-in at the yard behind the shop.
And Richard's reaction is it's priceless. He's not panicked. He's not outraged. He's just annoyed.
He's purely annoyed. He basically tells the cop, "I don't care, come back when it's late," which highlights this profound apathy that's set in. The crime itself was minimal. The gate was broken. A few bits and pieces were moved around, but nothing significant was taken.
And the police just chalk it up to kids stealing.
Exactly, which points to this kind of feral atmosphere in London. You've got kids running wild because their fathers are away at war, their mothers are working in factories, the social structure is broken down. But for Richard and Maud, it's just another irritation.
Just one more thing to deal with.
One more thing. They check the lock on Maud's shed, which is a crucial detail for reasons we'll get into, but otherwise, they just want to go back to bed and nurse their hangovers. They simply don't have the energy for outrage anymore.
But that low-level annoyance, it pales in comparison to the absolute tragedy that hits the Nettle family just a few weeks later.
Oh, this part of the source material was incredibly heavy to read.
We're talking about baby Winston.
Yes. This is really the emotional anchor of the first quarter of the year. Oliver and Elizabeth Nettle, who run the pub, they lose their baby, Winston. He was only 52 days old.
It's a sudden, unexplained death. What we would now probably call SIs, or cot death.
Right. But the tragedy isn't just the death itself, it's the state's response to it. This is where you see the system grinding against personal grief.
The sources go into this in really painful detail, the legal cruelty of it all. Because it was a sudden death, the law requires an autopsy.
The official term is suspicious death. Now, just imagine the trauma of that. You've just found your infant child dead in his cot, and the police and the doctors are standing in your home telling you they have to take his body away to cut him up to prove you didn't kill him.
Oh, horrific.
Elizabeth is distraught. She's screaming, "But he was alive when I went to bed. He was fine." It adds this layer of bureaucratic violence to an already unbearable personal grief. It's not just a sad event. It's a police matter. They are, in that moment, suspects.
And the community reaction is interesting, isn't it? The neighborhood kind of pulls together.
It does. It shuts down for the funeral. They have a white horse and a tiny white hearse. It sounds like one of those moments where the old East End spirit, that sense of communal solidarity, it really comes back. Everyone turns out.
But there's a dark undercurrent to it. The sources detail a conversation Elizabeth has with Arabella Flowers later on.
Yes, and this is such a chilling line. Elizabeth is talking about the attitude of outsiders, of officials. And she says, "Thousands died in the Blitz. What's one more little baby?"
What's one more little baby?
That's
That stops you in your tracks.
It speaks to the desensitization to death that has permeated everything. When you've seen bodies stacked in the streets in 1940, how much emotional bandwidth do you have left for one, quote-unquote, natural death in 1943? The war strips away the individuality of grief.
It becomes a statistic.
It becomes a statistic. And yet for the Nettles, it's everything. Their entire world has collapsed. And Elizabeth later talks about wanting another war baby almost immediately to replace him. which is its own kind of heartbreaking psychological response to that kind of loss.
A way to fight back against the void, I suppose. But looking at the broader picture of early 1943, we see this dismantling of the old community in other ways, too. Not just through tragedy, but through decay. The story of Mrs. Banks, for example.
Right, Mrs. Banks, the local shopkeeper, her son was a murderer, if I recall correctly, from one of our previous deep dives, and she's just been deteriorating ever since.
She's lost her mind, essentially. And in January, the authorities come for her. She's moved to what they call a home for the chronically ill, which Maud immediately identifies as the old Langthorne Hospital, the workhouse.
And that word workhouse just carries so much weight for that generation. It's the ultimate failure, the ultimate shame. It's a grim, grim end. She's wheeled out, completely unresponsive, her little shop boarded up.
It symbolizes the erasure of the pre-war landscape, doesn't it? These fixtures of the community, these people who have been there for decades, are just vanishing.
The social fabric is thinning out. It's being unpicked, thread by thread.
And then, as if to underline that point, the sexton, Mr. Files, dies.
Another link to the past is severed. He'd been the sexton at St. Giles Cripplegate since the turn of the century. He'd buried generations of their families. His funeral is described as being quite poignant because just as they are lowering his coffin into the ground, 4 Spitfires fly over in formation.
A coincidence, of course.
A total coincidence. They were probably heading out on a mission. But the mourners, Richard included, they take it as a tribute, a salute from the new world to the old. It just shows how desperate people were to find meaning, to find some nobility in the relentless grind. They needed to believe the war acknowledged their small personal losses.
They needed those little moments to keep them going. But while the community is publicly mourning these losses, there is a lot of activity happening behind closed doors. Illicit activity. Let's move to section 2. Secrets, lies, and illegal activities. Because Maud Biggs is... she's Breaking Bad again.
She certainly is. Maud has dusted off her chemistry set, so to speak, and has returned to her kitchen chemistry. She is brewing homemade morphine pills.
Now, just to be clear, for anyone tuning in, Maud isn't running some kind of criminal cartel. Her motives are complicated.
Her justification is that she's doing it to help her neighbors who are in pain, and it's a strong justification. The war has made standard medical care incredibly scarce or prohibitively expensive. You have people suffering from chronic pain, from old war wounds, from cancer.
And the NHS doesn't exist yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So Maud feels this moral obligation to provide relief where the state can't or won't. But let's be very clear about the legalities here. She is trafficking narcotics. This isn't just bending the rules. This is a felony that carries a serious prison sentence.
And her production process is getting more sophisticated. The sources describe a device they build called a scrubber.
Yes, this is fascinating. It's this incredible piece of wartime ingenuity, morphine production, the process of distilling it from opium poppies. It stinks. It has a very distinct, sweet chemical smell.
So she risks getting caught just by the smell.
Exactly. So Richard and Oliver Nettle put their heads together and they build this device. It's a wooden box filled with activated coal dust that filters the exhaust from her distilling apparatus. It literally scrubs the smell from the air so the neighbors, and more importantly, the police don't catch wind of it.
It's this incredible mix of domesticity and industrial-level crime happening in a back room.
A cottage industry of illegal pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
But the heat is on. The risk is very real. There's a mention of a Constable Herring later in the year.
Right, a woman police constable.
Yes, a WPC Herring. She actually comes sniffing around the neighborhood. She suspects Elizabeth Nettle has some illegal pills for her own pain, and she connects it back to a warning that Maud received years ago about this. There's this incredibly tense scene where the police come to the shop and confront Maud directly.
Do they have evidence?
They don't have hard evidence, but they know. They can't prove it, but they know she's the source. And they give her a stark warning. They tell her that trafficking, wartime or not, means prison. No excuses.
It raises such an interesting moral question, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The question that runs through this whole year. Is she a criminal or a saint?
It's the essential ambiguity of the home front. The state is busy trying to kill Germans. It's not particularly focused on Mrs. Smith's arthritis down the street, so Maud steps into that vacuum. But the risk she's taking is enormous. If she's caught, she loses the shop, her reputation, her freedom, everything. It just adds this constant hum of anxiety to their daily life. They are living right on the edge.
And speaking of anxiety and extremely risky behavior, let's talk about Gail. She's the shop assistant. She's turning 17, and she has a secret romance brewing with Freddie.
Ah, Freddie! This is a storyline that really highlights that acceleration of adulthood we talked about at the top of the show. It's so potent.
So just to remind everyone, Freddie is the boy Maud saved years ago. She essentially rescued him from freezing to death, took him in. He was her foster child for a time. He's now 14 years old.
14. But, and this is crucial, the source says he's had a massive growth spurt. He's tall, he looks 17, and he's wearing a junior Air Force uniform. He looks the part of a young serviceman.
And Gail is nearly 17, so in peacetime, this would be problematic, to say the least.
A scandal. A 14-year-old and a 16, nearly 17-year-old. But in wartime, all the lines are blurred. They meet secretly. They go to the monument, to Waterloo Station. It's all very clandestine and romantic.
But the dynamic is just heartbreaking for Maud. Because Freddie isn't just secretly seeing Gail, he's actively and cruelly ignoring Maud.
That's the real betrayal. That's the heartbreak. We learn that Richard gets so desperate, he travels all the way to Hampshire, to Freddie's training base, to try and see him, to ask him why he's ghosting the woman who literally saved his life.
And he gets turned away.
Turned away at the gate. The guard says Freddie is too busy with his training. Richard has to take the bus all the way back to London, completely defeated.
And in his letters to Gail, which Maud eventually finds, Freddie admits he's ashamed of his roots.
He does. He calls himself a scruffy old East Ender and says he wants to put all that behind him. He wants the girl from his old life, but he wants to completely reject the mother figure.
It's classic adolescent rebellion, but just amplified by the war.
100%. He's playing at being a soldier. He's surrounded by other boys, some of whom might be dead in a year. He wants to grab at life, at romance, at the status of a uniform before it's too late. He rejects Maud because she represents the poverty and the helplessness of his childhood. He wants to be a man of the RAF, not some charity case from Newgate Street.
And when Maud catches them, because of course she finds the letters, the explosion is nuclear.
Oh, she is absolutely furious. She confronts Gail. She threatens to sack her. She just loses it. And it's not just about the deception or the age gap. It's the fear.
The fear that Gail will end up like Maggie.
Exactly. Maud screams at her that she'll end up knocked up just like Maggie did. She sees this awful cycle repeating. Young girls, impressed by a uniform, rushing into trouble they're not equipped to handle. And Gail's response is so telling. She pushes back and she says, "It's the war. We don't know if we have a future."
And that one line, "We don't know if we have a future," it really just sums up the entire teenage experience of 1943. But, if Gail's secret romance is dangerous, Maggie's situation is a full-blown catastrophe.
It truly is.
And this brings us to Section 3, the scandal of the year, the dentist and the justice system.
This is the storyline that just dominates the summer and autumn of 1943. And it is a dark, dark story. So Maggie, after a string of other bad choices, moves in with a man named Dick Pepper.
He's a dentist, he's wealthy, his father is a magistrate. On paper, he sounds like a step up for her.
On paper, yes. But the family, Richard and Maud in particular, they despise him. From the very beginning, they call him a coward and a pervert. Their instincts are screaming that something is wrong with this man.
And their instincts turn out to be horrifyingly, tragically correct. In June, there's an incident at his dental surgery.
It's grim. A young female patient, Miss Isabella Argabright, comes running out of the surgery in a state of utter distress. Her clothes are disturbed. She's clearly traumatized. She has been sexually assaulted while under anesthesia for a tooth extraction.
And Maggie is there. She sees this happen.
Maggie's there. She sees the victim. She sees Dick's pathetic, guilty reaction, and she knows instantly what he's done. The source says she physically strikes him. In that moment, she realizes she's been living with a predator. The man she's built a life with is a monster.
But the reaction that really, really stood out to me in the source material was Agnieszka's.
Yes, this is a pivotal moment for her character. Agnieszka, who is usually the calm, devout, quiet presence in the shop, goes into what is described as a violent rage. She tracks Dick to his home. She is ready to do him harm.
And we have to remember her backstory here. This is so important.
Crucial. She was sold by her own father into prostitution. She knows intimately what predators look like and what they do to women. She recognizes the evil in Dick Pepper instantly, and it triggers all of her past trauma.
So she goes to the police. But this is where the ugly reality of the British class system crashes into the story.
The police are immediately skeptical. Dick Pepper isn't just some random dentist. He's Mr. Pepper Sr.'s son. His father is a magistrate, a powerful man, part of the establishment. And who is reporting him? Agnieszka, a Polish refugee, a former prostitute. They treat her like a hysterical foreigner.
But eventually they have to investigate.
Yeah.
And Dick is arrested.
He is. After a brief manhunt, he's found hiding, pathetically, in his father's golf shed.
So at this point, you're thinking, okay, justice will be served. He's caught. There's a victim. There are witnesses to the immediate aftermath, like Maggie. The case seems solid.
And this is the twist. This is the moment that defines the cynicism of 1943. In October, months later, the family gets a visit from a solicitor, a Mr. Simon Reed, and he informs them that the case against Dick Pepper has collapsed. Isabella Argabright has withdrawn her allegation.
Why? Why would she do that?
Money. Cold, hard cash. It's revealed that Dick's powerful father paid Isabella's family £200 to drop the charges.
£200. I mean, we have to put that in context. That's a huge sum of money in 1943 for a working-class family living in a slum.
It's life-changing money. It's a fortune. And Maggie, horrified, actually goes to visit Isabella's mother, Mrs. Argabright, who is completely unrepentant. She calls the payoff a winner. A winner. They're living in utter squalor in Pentonville, and this money is their ticket out. The source quotes her as saying, "He didn't rape her, just a bit of interfering." It's this brutal, pragmatic, soul-crushing calculation of survival. Your daughter's trauma is worth less than a new start.
But the injustice doesn't even stop there. This is the part of the story that just made my jaw drop. Isabella, the victim, is later prosecuted herself.
Yes. This is the final, vicious turn of the knife. The system demands its pound of flesh. Since she withdrew the accusation, the police charge her with wasting police time.
You're kidding me.
And she is found guilty. She is sentenced to 60 days in Holloway Prison.
So let's get this straight. The wealthy attacker, the predator, he goes free. His bonged-out house is even being rebuilt with a generous insurance payout, and his victim goes to jail.
It is a stark, devastating, and infuriating critique of British society in 1943. This was supposed to be the People's War, this great leveler. But what this story shows is that underneath it all, privilege still buys immunity. The rich can literally buy their way out of justice. And Maggie is just left crushed by her own naivety. She thought she was moving up in the world, dating a professional man, but she realizes she was just enabling a monster.
It really anchors that theme of moral erosion we talked about. It's not just the Nazis who are the bad guys. There's a deep rot at home, too.
Precisely. And while all this personal drama is unfolding, the actual physical landscape of their lives is shifting as well. Which brings us to Section 4, the grind of daily life. In July, something happens that finally brings closure to a mystery from the very beginning of the Blitz.
The excavation of the old shop.
That's right. The Morrow's original hardware shop was completely destroyed in a bombing raid in 1940. For 3 years, it's just been a pile of rubble across the street, a constant reminder. Finally, in July of 43, work crews, mostly women, it's noted, arrived to clear the site.
And Maud is watching from her window. She's been waiting for this because she knows someone is still in there.
She does. Mrs. Henderson, the old lodger who lived above the shop. She's been missing, presumed dead since the bomb hit. And Maud has carried that guilt for 3 years. Was she alive in the rubble? Did she suffer? It's been this unresolved trauma.
And they find her.
They finally find her body, pressed between a collapsed archway. And Maud's reaction, it's not horror. It's not shock. It's just profound relief. She whispers to herself, "Good night, Mrs. Henderson."
It's a moment of quiet closure in a very loud war.
It is. It's also just a staggering reminder of how long this has all been going on. The dead from 1940 are only being dug up and buried in the summer of 1943. It connects the timeline of trauma in a very tangible way.
And speaking of trauma, the war news this year is just a constant roller coaster, isn't it?
Right.
We mentioned Stalingrad and the dam busters, which were highs, but there's also the Hamburg firestorm.
Yes, the sources mention Richard listening obsessively to the news on the wireless. The Allies bomb Hamburg, killing 40,000 people. They create a firestorm, and the family's reaction is really mixed.
There's a sense of grim satisfaction, I imagine.
There is. A sense that the Germans are finally getting a taste of their own medicine after the Blitz, but the scale of it is horrifying. And Maud, she stops reading the papers. She can't take it anymore. The sheer scale of the atrocity, the reports of Jewish exterminations coming out, the brutality on the Russian front, the incinerated cities, it's becoming too much to process.
It's that war fatigue again. They know they're winning, but the methods are becoming just as horrific as the enemies. And then, to top it all off, you have Mrs. Foster, the new lodger.
Mrs. Foster. She's a spiritualist. She moves in and claims to have spirit guides who tell her the future. And one evening, she gathers them for a little session.
And she has a prediction about when the war will end.
She does. She predicts the war will end in 1947.
Oh no! Imagine hearing that in 1943. You're exhausted, rationing is tighter than ever, and someone tells you, don't worry, it's only 4 more years of this.
It's a gut punch. It absolutely depresses everyone in the room. Richard tries to be optimistic. He points to the invasion of Italy and says things are moving in the right direction, but the spiritualist's prediction just hangs over the house like a thick black cloud. This idea of an endless war.
Well, let's move into Section 5, New Lives and New Sorrows. Because even amidst all this fatigue and horror, life in its messy way goes on. And Maggie, who is never one to stay single for long, meets someone new.
She does. After the absolute disaster with Dick Pepper, she meets Cleveland Fisher, and he is something completely new for their world. He's a Black American GI.
And this brings that whole new cultural element in the story, that classic overpaid, oversexed, and overhear vibe about the American GIs in Britain.
Exactly. Richard meets him at the pub, and there's this slightly awkward but friendly conversation about the term limey. It just highlights the massive influx of American troops into London. And Cleveland is charming, he's generous with his money and his American rations, and Maggie is completely swept off her feet.
He's an escape.
He's a total escape. He takes her for lunch. He tells her stories about skyscrapers in the Bronx. He represents a world that is big and hopeful and not covered in bomb dust.
But then, of course, comes the consequence. Maggie discovers she's pregnant.
And the timeline here is absolutely key. It's revealed that she is pregnant, but it's not Cleveland's child. It's Dick Pepper's.
Oh, wow. So the predator who bought his way out of jail has left this permanent mark on the family.
It's a tragic, bitter irony. Maud is devastated, absolutely shattered. The source gives us her line, "I've raised 2 children who don't know the difference between right and wrong." She sees this cycle of illegitimacy and bad choices just continuing. Maggie already had Juliet out of wedlock, and now there's another one on the way. And this time, the father is a man they all know is a monster.
It's just so messy. It's so human and messy. And Arabella, the newlywed neighbor, Mrs. Flowers. Her family drama isn't over either. Her brother Mark is released from prison this year.
Yes, Mark is this recurring problem, this link to a past she's desperate to escape. He gets out of prison in November, and he's a wreck. He's broken, he's lice-ridden, he's painfully thin, and he expects his sister to take him in.
And Arabella, who in the past might have been more soft-hearted, she draws a very hard line.
She refuses, point blank. She is Mrs. Flowers now. She has a respectable job, a respectable soldier husband. She's pregnant. She can't have an ex-con brother sleeping on her sofa, ruining her newfound respectability.
It shows how the war has hardened people.
It really does. She gives him some money. She agrees to meet him for tea, but she keeps him at arm's length. She is protecting her own new life, her own small victory from the war, even if it means being cruel to her own flesh and blood. And her husband, Tom, is then shipped off to Scotland, which is almost certainly preparation for D-Day.
And to cap off this year of family dramas, we have Richard's quest to find Freddie. We touched on this earlier, but he actually makes the journey to the airbase in Hampshire.
It's such a desperate, sad move. He writes a little note to Maud, sneaks out of the house early in the morning, and takes a long bus journey. He wants to confront the boy. He wants to look him in the eye and say, "Your mother, your foster mother who saved you, is hurting. Why are you doing this?"
And he doesn't even get to see him.
The rejection is absolute and final. He's turned away at the main gate by a guard. He's told that Cadet Freddie is too busy with his Air Force training to see visitors. Richard has to turn around and make that long, defeated journey back to London. It symbolizes the total severance of that bond. The war has taken the boy and turned him into something else, something unreachable.
So as we reach the outro for this deep dive, let's try and summarize 1943. It wasn't a year of glitz survival. It was something more insidious, wasn't it?
It was a year of moral erosion. I think that's the headline for 1943. The wealthy escape justice. Dick Pepper is free. His house is being rebuilt with insurance money. The innocent suffered. Isabella Argabright went to prison. Baby Winston is dead. And the young rushed into this dangerous, accelerated adulthood gale, dating a boy soldier. Freddie rejecting the family that saved him. Maggie pregnant by a predator.
It really feels like the family and the community is fracturing at the very moment the Allies are finally starting to win the war.
That is the central paradox of this year. Strategically, 1943 is a major turning point for the war. But for the Morrows and the people of Newgate Street, it's a profound low point. The foundations are cracking.
And looking ahead, The year ends with this incredibly stark image from the source material. Isabella Argabright leaves Holloway Prison with exactly 3 shillings in her pocket.
3 shillings and a criminal record. That's what she gets for being a victim. And at the same time, Clement Attlee is on the radio promising the nation that 1944 will be the hour of reckoning.
Which we all know means D-Day. The invasion of Europe is finally coming.
But the Morrows enter that pivotal year in such a fragile, broken state. Maggie is pregnant and single again. Maud is risking prison every single day with her secret pill manufacturing. The victory that's supposedly on the horizon feels very, very distant and very hollow.
So here's a provocative thought to leave you with. We always talk about the spirit of the Blitz, that unshakable communal unity from 1940. But looking at the evidence from 1943, has that spirit actually survived? Or has the long, dull, grinding pressure of the war fundamentally broken the moral compass? Can they hold it all together for the final push? Or are they and the society around them already too damaged?
That is the question for 1944, isn't it?
We will find out in the next deep dive. Thanks for listening.